Hey everyone, welcome to a coaching call on February 6th. And I am going to be going over um, some daily movement stuff today. So remember, we always want to start out thinking about our five pillars. We think about nutrition, fitness, sleep, hydration, and our stress resiliency. And as we think about those five things, if we can make headway in each of those five categories all together, not just one, right? It's kind of like a chair, right? If all of the legs are kind of at the same, then we're kind of balanced. But if we have one leg incredibly longer than the other, kind of off balance. So try to think about your pillars like that. And so we always, in our program, we always start out with the nutrition, right? That's where we kind of get the most bang for our buck. I always say that you're never going to out exercise poor nutrition, which is why we start with nutrition. There's so many different ways in which our body can benefit from good nutrition, and it can also benefit from kind of putting down some of the things that are not helping us. It might be a little bit inflammatory or taking up room that good food could be, stepping into. So we start out with nutrition just to get the best bang for our buck. The next thing that we move into is our fitness. Okay, so far this year we've talked about our nutrition, we've talked about our overall calories, we've talked about protein goals, we've talked about sort of like a little bit if your metabolism has been sluggish and now you're trying to add in more food and get your metabolism going, and maybe you gain a pound or two to try not to let it do your head in, just to kind of let your metabolism catch up. So we discussed that a couple of weeks ago. And tonight we're going to talk about our movement, our daily movement. So our research is going to, it tells us that if we are doing just a little bit of movement each day, it's going to be beneficial. And in fact, it's more beneficial most of the time than just doing like one or two giant big workouts for the week, right? So things that we do daily are going to have a bigger impact. And so, likely you always hear me say, like, oh, if you're doing this thing every day, it's going to have a big impact. And maybe it doesn't serve you. It's having a big impact, even though it's just a little habit and you're doing it every day. Fortunately, converse is also true, right? So when we can establish something that is actually beneficial for our health and we do it every day, it's going to have a large impact. Okay. So think about that, because sometimes in our head, like we get out of the routine or we let the day get away from us and we kind of think like, oh, you know what, never mind. I'm just going to do this really intense workout on Friday or over the weekend, right? And then we kind of let the week get away from us. And that's not super beneficial. One, we put ourselves at an increased risk of injury when we do things like that, because we're not allowing our body to adapt to balance and mobility and flexibility and increased physiology during the week. And then we, have to, tax it with this big intense workout, once or twice a week. So even though like our head might be telling us like that's what we need to do, it's not really serving us long term. And when I say our head, I have when I'm out running, or needing to get out running, sometimes I say sometimes my head needs to go for a run and my body is not willing. Sometimes my body wants to go for a run and my head is not willing. And you know what? If they both line up with their neither one willing, we got to pull a lot of tricks out, right? To kind of make that happen. But hey, sometimes, not often, but sometimes they work out where we're super pumped to get out there, right? So think about how you're is your head calling the shots here, and making you do something that might not be good for you long term. So some of you, actually, it's about this time, which is why we discuss it now. Some of you got an assignment this week called Daily Basics. And depending on your fitness level or what you're already doing or what you already have incorporated, the Daily Basics is a group of 3 exercises that are not the same muscle groups typically. that are usually like upper or lower, and maybe some kind of core, depending, so that you have to kind of maybe do like a sit to stand, or and then like maybe a push up or something. So it's something that's moving. You've got to move your levels. When we change our levels, it incorporates a little bit of cardiovascular, more so than if we were just kind of doing a bench press. Okay, which is kind of just on the same, or keeping our body on the same level, but moving our arms, right? When we move our whole body up and down, we're actually moving blood volume up and down, right? So the heart has to work a little bit more. So it becomes a little bit more cardiovascularly challenging. So we're only doing, when we talk about daily basics, it is not meant to be a workout, although it could be in certain instances. If you haven't been working out due to illness or injury and we're just coming back, sometimes I might give some activation exercises. I might give some stretching. I might give daily basics as we progress towards something. But daily basics can also be incorporated into your existing routines to just make sure that we are getting our physiology involved in what we are doing instead of sitting all day. So a lot of times I hear like, oh, I just got swept up in my work. I totally missed lunch. I was working, I was in a groove, and I just kept going. So not only did you miss lunch, but you were likely sitting over the computer, right? Maybe you did like a stretch or something, maybe, but likely not. Okay, so we kind of got dinged on two of those things because we missed our nutrition, and then we just sat with our hip flexors crunched up tight over, maybe we're even working on that tech neck. Like me, I'm always like squinting. I've got to do all these, supported fish poses to offset my leaning forward and squinting. Um, so we get dinged on two of those things. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're getting up and moving. And while I'm on that, although we're not talking about hydration today, one of the perks of being well hydrated is that you've got to get up and go to the bathroom. And so this gives you an opportunity to get up, walk, stretch your legs during the day, and not you can only go for so long when you're in the groove of something, if you got to get up and go to the bathroom. So the daily basics are, let's establish a routine so that your body becomes accustomed to movement. There has never been a bigger lesson for me than, well, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Okay, top five, top five lessons of when COVID hit. And, I'm fairly active, and I was doing, I stuck with my workouts. The first week we're in lockdown, and I had been accustomed to, those of you who knew our studio, I would get up every day and I would go over to our studio, and I'm handing you guys weights, or, leading a stretch class, and I'm, wasn't working out, but was active. And the that was obviously not happening during lockdown, but I was still doing my workouts. And so I was very surprised when I gained 5 pounds in the first week, because I recognized how much, or how important those movements are, of getting into the car. Even if you're driving somewhere, you're just leaving the house and getting into a car and walking from the parking lot into the office and walking up and down hallways, or maybe even a flight of stairs. Those movements are very important. And so that really sort of made me understand the importance, and I kind of developed these daily basics so that we can do something, fairly minimal, and get our physiology involved. Typically I have you do 3 exercises, I have you do 10. And again, depending on where you are, fitness, if it's an injury or just coming back, or in addition to, you could be doing one set, 2 sets, or 3 sets all the way through. But the goal of daily basics is to get your body to move, to elevate your heart rate just a little bit. We're not trying to, get into your fat burning zone or whatever. It's only a few minutes. Your daily basics should take you about 3 to 5 minutes tops. And it's something that you could do every single day without really taxing your body too much, right? It's not a big, intense workout. So for those of you who just got your daily basics, then you have a little bit, I know we talked about it when we did our check-ins yesterday. But if we didn't, and you're like, "Oh, that sounds great," there's nothing that's stopping you. I would recommend do 10 squats, 10 air squats. If you can jump, I would do some plyometric squats, and then I would drop down onto the ground and do some crunches or full sit-ups or even push-ups. So the goal is to just choose 3 very basic exercises that you can do 10 of. You'll do 10, 10, 10, rest for 30 seconds. And then if you feel you can repeat a second set, you do, rest for 30. Feel you can repeat for the third set, rest for 30, and then repeat that. And you do your 3 sets. You should get your blood flowing, your heart rate up just a little bit, and you create a routine. And any routine that is healthy and beneficial is one that is worth establishing, even 3 to 5 minutes. And so sometimes I find that those are the hardest things for me because they're they don't I don't need to mount a significant amount of energy. I don't need to be like, okay, let's go. It's very low key. And sometimes those are the things that are even more challenging, right? Because we don't really get ourselves focused and say, like, all right, here we go. Right. It's like, you're like, oh, you know what? That's just 3 to 5 minutes. It doesn't really make a difference. I'll do it tomorrow. But it does, and don't wait for tomorrow. Okay. All right, so those are our daily basics. And let me just make sure, do we have any other notes here? Our daily movement, daily basics. So again, if you're already doing, like, let's say we have you on a certain amount of steps per day, keep that going. If you've got strength workouts that you're doing or classes that you're doing or other activities, skiing during the winter up here in the Northeast, keep those activities in place as we've discussed. And you can make sure that you add in your daily activity in addition to, and it should not take away from your written workouts. Okay, so those are your key workouts, whatever that's written, your strength planning, whatever we have going on. The daily basics should not impact that at all. If you don't have any of that and we're just kind of getting going, then they're not going to impact it anyway. Don't worry about it. If we need to get there, we will. All right. So those are your that's our coach call for today. I don't think I had any other questions that I wanted to go over. Mm, no, I will mention I do have a chart for the pillars. Some of you might have noticed that we had software that you used to check in with your accounts. It was a little bit glitchy, so I've been switching over to better software. And before I fully launched it, I wanted to make sure that it was not glitchy. So it's just about ready and tested and all of that good stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a form on there for you guys so that each of your pillars is on there. And then, sometimes people like, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight or I'm not getting, bigger, biceps or whatever it is. And if we can look at the 5 pillars and see how many days out of 7 that we're doing the things on a chart, sometimes it becomes real clear why we're not, getting where we think we should be, right? When it's concrete on the page, we're like, ooh, okay. So fair enough. So you also may have heard me say last week, please be very specific when I ask you how many days out of 7. There's a reason, right? And so I know, like, sometimes I get a lot of responses that are oh, it was okay. Okay is not a number between 1 and 7, and don't feel like, oh, geez, that was me." It's everybody. We all do it because, subconsciously, we're probably like, oh, I think it was probably like 2." No, we don't want to say it. We don't want to say 2. So we're like, "Oh, I think it was all right," And so from this moment forward, try to give yourself a little bit of accountability of how many days out of 7, okay? And then once we get that chart up there, you'll be able to chart it, okay? But as we go on your weekly focuses, you know that I'm going to ask you on Friday, how many days out of 7 did you get this done? So try to think about that. And if it's like 3 or 4, like, okay, we need to do a little bit more work on that. And if it's like 6, then, like, okay, I feel like that's a good number out of 7, right? So keep those things in mind. Let me know if you guys have any questions about daily basics, daily movements, or anything like that. And hopefully we'll have your account up and running. And I think I put it into an email, but I will reiterate here that if you want data collection in the account you will have it. And if you are overwhelmed by software and you don't want it and you're like, I can't remember any more passwords, you don't need it. Totally fine. Okay. All right. So it's all about not getting us more stressed out, right? Or maybe one day I will, so that we can practice our stress resiliency. All right, guys, have a great week. And I look forward to whatever you guys have to crush this week is going to be awesome. So looking forward to some big accomplishments. All right, guys, have a good one.